I never thought I would be the kind of man who checks camera footage in secret. I always believed that if something was wrong in a marriage, you talked about it. You didn't spy. You didn't snoop. You didn't let suspicion turn you into someone paranoid. But that belief started cracking the night my wife came home 3 hours late and couldn't explain why did it began small. She said traffic was bad. Then she said she stopped to get coffee. When I asked where, she paused half a second too long before naming a place that closes at 8 p.m. She had walked in at 9:40. I didn't confront her immediately. I told myself I was overthinking. We've been married 8 years. We've had rough patches, sure, but nothing that screamed betrayal. She had been distant lately, glued to her phone, protective of it in a way that felt new. If I walked into the room, she'd tilt the screen away. If it buzzed at night, she'd flip it over. Still, I held on to trust. Until I remembered the camera point 6 months ago. After a minor accident in a parking lot, I installed a dash cam in her car. She wasn't comfortable driving at night, and I told her it was just for safety. It records both the road and the inside of the car. We rarely checked it. It just looped and overwrote every few days unless something triggered the lock feature. That night I couldn't sleep. Her breathing beside me was steady, almost too steady. I kept replaying her answers in my mind, the way she avoided eye contact, the faint scent of cologne that didn't belong to me. Around 2 a.m., I got out of bed quietly and went to the garage. My hands were shaking more than I expected when I pulled the memory card. I kept telling myself this was stupid. I'd watch it, see nothing unusual, and feel ashamed for doubting her. Upstairs, I sat alone at the kitchen table with my laptop. The house was silent. I inserted the card and opened the files. I scrolled to the timestamp from earlier that evening. First, everything looked normal. She was driving, music playing softly in the background. She looked tired, focused on the road. I almost felt relief. Maybe she really was stuck in traffic. Then I noticed something. She wasn't heading home. She passed the usual turn. I leaned closer to the screen. Maybe she was avoiding construction. Maybe she was taking a shortcut. But she kept driving in the opposite direction of our house. 10 minutes later, she pulled into a dimly lit parking lot. Not a coffee shop. Not a grocery store. It was the lot behind a small restaurant that I knew well because we used to go there when we were dating. She parked but didn't get out. Instead, she picked up her phone. She typed something quickly. Then she checked herself in the rearview mirror, adjusting her hair, smoothing her blouse. My chest tightened. That wasn't the face of someone exhausted from traffic. That was the face of someone preparing to be seen. Headlights appeared behind her car. Another vehicle pulled in and parked 2 spaces away. I felt a strange buzzing in my ears. The camera angle showed only part of the other car, but I saw a man step out. He walked confidently, like he knew exactly where he was going. He opened her passenger door without knocking. She didn't look surprised. He slid into the seat beside her. For a few seconds, they just looked at each other. No audio inside the cabin except the faint hum of the engine. But their body language said everything. Familiar. Comfortable. Too comfortable. She smiled in a way I hadn't seen in months. He reached over and touched her hand. She didn't pull away. I paused the video. My heart was pounding so loudly I thought it might wake her upstairs. I stared at the frozen frame. Her fingers intertwined with his. I wanted to close the laptop. I wanted to pretend I hadn't seen it. But something darker pushed me forward. I hit play. They talked. I couldn't hear his voice clearly, but I saw her laugh. Not a polite laugh. A real one. The kind that crinkles her nose slightly. I used to be the reason for that laugh. After a few minutes, he leaned in. She didn't hesitate. The kiss wasn't quick or uncertain. It was practiced. Slow. Intentional. I felt like someone had punched straight through my chest. All the air left my body. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. There it was. Not suspicion. Not imagination. Proof. They pulled apart, and she rested her forehead against his. He brushed her cheek with his thumb. She closed her eyes. I fast-forwarded. They stayed in the car for almost 40 minutes. Talking. Touching. Kissing again. At one point, she glanced at the clock on the dashboard and looked nervous. He said something that made her smile like reassurance. Eventually, he stepped out and returned to his car. She watched him drive away before starting her engine. I sat back in my chair, numb. But it wasn't over. Instead of heading home immediately, she didn't drive toward our neighborhood. She went the opposite way again, circling through side streets. I realized what she was doing, creating a believable route, adding time, building her traffic story. When she finally parked in our driveway, her face was calm. She checked her reflection once more, wiped under her eyes, and practiced a neutral expression. I stopped the video there. For a long time, I just stared at the blank screen. The kitchen clock ticked loudly on the wall. My marriage had just split in half, and the house didn't even know it. Every memory started rearranging itself in my head. The late meetings, the sudden gym membership, the new perfume. I had explained all of it away because I trusted her. Now trust felt like the stupidest thing I'd ever given someone. I thought about waking her up, dragging her downstairs, forcing her to watch it with me. But what would that change? The footage didn't need interpretation. It was clear. What hurt the most wasn't just the kiss. It was the look on her face. She looked alive, present, like she was choosing him, not slipping by accident. I closed the laptop slowly. Upstairs, she was still asleep in our bed. The same bed we bought together. The same bed where she told me she loved me countless times. I realized something in that moment. I hadn't just watched my wife betray me. I had watched her become someone I didn't recognize. And I wasn't ready for what that meant. I didn't sleep at all that night. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, replaying the footage frame by frame in my mind. Every touch, every smile, every second she looked at him the way she used to look at me. The hardest part wasn't the anger. It was the clarity. There was no room left for doubt. By morning, she acted normal. She stretched, yawned, and asked if I wanted coffee. She kissed my cheek before heading to the kitchen. I studied her face carefully, wondering how someone could look so ordinary after shattering something so permanent. There was no guilt in her eyes, no hesitation, just routine. I wanted to confront her immediately, but something stopped me. Maybe I wasn't ready to hear her lie. Maybe I wanted more proof, as if what I saw wasn't already enough. Or maybe I just needed time to understand what I was about to lose. That afternoon when she left for work, I checked the camera again. This time I went further back. 3 days earlier, same pattern. She drove past our usual turn. Same parking lot. Same waiting. The man arrived again. Different shirt, same confidence. He didn't look nervous. He looked comfortable. Like this wasn't new. She greeted him with a smile that started before he even opened the door. They talked for a few minutes. Then she reached for his hand first. That detail hurt more than anything. She wasn't being chased. She was participating. I fast-forwarded again. A week earlier. This time they didn't stay in the parking lot. She drove somewhere else after he got in. The camera captured their silhouettes in the dim light as she parked behind what looked like an apartment building. They sat there for a moment before both stepping out of the car. The footage didn't show where they went after that. But it didn't need to. I felt something inside me go cold. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't one bad decision. This was a pattern. Planned. Repeated. Comfortable. I checked the timestamps. This had been going on for at least 6 weeks. 6 weeks of lies. 6 weeks of excuses. 6 weeks of sleeping next to me after being with him. My mind started connecting dots I had ignored. The night she claimed she was too tired. The way she turned away from me in bed. The sudden fights over small things. As if she needed justification to distance herself. I had blamed stress. I had blamed myself. Now I knew. I closed the laptop and sat in silence. I expected rage to explode out of me. But instead there was this heavy, suffocating sadness. 8 years of marriage reduced to hidden meetings in a parked car. That evening, she came home earlier than usual. She seemed lighter, almost cheerful. She told me her project at work was almost done and things would go back to normal soon. The irony made my stomach twist. During dinner I watched her carefully. Every time her phone buzzed, her eyes flicked toward it instantly. She tried to act casual, but I could see the anticipation. When she finally checked it, her lips curved into a smile she tried to suppress. I didn't need to see the screen to know who it was. After dinner, she went upstairs to shower. Her phone was on the couch. For a moment I considered grabbing it, unlocking it, searching for messages. But I stopped myself. I already had what I needed. The camera didn't lie. I didn't want to become the kind of man digging through texts, looking for extra pain. Instead, I did something else. That I opened the shared bank account on my laptop. There were small withdrawals I hadn't noticed before. Cash taken out every few days. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to avoid suspicion. I checked credit card statements. A dinner at that restaurant we used to love. A charge for flowers that were never brought home. The evidence stacked quietly, neatly, like a file being built against her. When she came back downstairs, her hair damp from the shower, she sat beside me and leaned her head on my shoulder. "You've been quiet lately," she said softly. That I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. She wrapped her arm around mine, as if claiming territory she was actively betraying. I could smell her shampoo. The same scent from the car footage when she adjusted her hair before meeting him. I wondered if he noticed it too. "Everything okay?" she asked. That I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I married. The woman who promised forever. The woman who now belonged to two worlds. "Yeah," I said calmly. "Just tired." She nodded and squeezed my hand. Later that night, as she slept, I sat in the dark and made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. And I wasn't going to accuse her without a plan. If this was going to end, it wouldn't end with me losing control. I would confront her. But not yet. First, I needed to know exactly how deep this betrayal went. The next few days felt unreal. Like I was living beside a stranger wearing my wife's face. I moved through routines automatically: work, dinner, small talk, while inside something kept tightening. Every word she spoke sounded rehearsed. Every smile felt borrowed. But I stayed calm. That I needed to understand the full truth before I said a single word. 2 days later, she told me she had another late meeting. She didn't look nervous when she said it. That confidence told me everything. This wasn't a risky secret anymore. It was part of her schedule. As soon as she left, I waited 15 minutes and got in my car. I didn't follow too close. I didn't want to be obvious. I already knew where she would go. The same parking lot. The same ritual. When she drove past the turn toward her office, my chest felt hollow instead of shocked. Predictable. That's what hurt most. The predictability. She pulled into the lot exactly as before. I parked far enough away to avoid being noticed, but close enough to see her car clearly. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I watched. 5 minutes later, headlights appeared. The same car. He stepped out. This time I saw him clearly under the streetlight. Mid-30s. Confident posture. Clean cut. The kind of man who probably believes he deserves whatever he wants. He didn't hesitate before opening her passenger door. I watched them through the windshield. Their silhouettes leaned toward each other almost immediately. No awkwardness. No hesitation. This was routine. And then something shifted inside me. Not anger, not even jealousy. Just clarity. She chose this. Not once. Not by accident. Repeatedly. After about 20 minutes, they drove off together. My stomach dropped. This was different from before. I waited a moment, then followed at a distance. They drove across town to an apartment complex I didn't recognize. She parked near the entrance. They got out. He placed his hand on the small of her back as they walked inside. That small gesture shattered something in me more than the kiss ever did. It was intimate. Familiar. I sat in my car outside that building for almost an hour. I didn't know what I expected: to see them come back out quickly, to catch them arguing, to see doubt. Instead, all I felt was time passing. When they finally reappeared, she looked relaxed. Peaceful. He kissed her goodbye in the open, not caring who might see. She smiled up at him like she belonged there. I followed her home. By the time she walked through our front door, I was already inside, sitting on the couch. I had beaten her back by taking a different route. She seemed slightly surprised to see me still awake. "I thought you'd be asleep," she said. "I couldn't," I replied. She placed her purse down and walked over to me. "Long night," she sighed, sitting beside me. I studied her face carefully. No shame. No fear. Just the performance. "How was the meeting?" I asked evenly. She didn't flinch. "Exhausting. I can't wait for this project to end." I nodded slowly. Right then I understood something important. She had rehearsed this life. She had prepared her lies carefully enough that they came naturally. If I confronted her without showing proof, she would deny it. She would twist it. She would cry. And somehow I might even question myself that so I stayed silent. That night in bed she reached for me. That hadn't happened in weeks. The guilt maybe. Or maybe she was trying to maintain balance between two worlds that I gently moved her hand away. I'm really tired, I said. She turned over without arguing, but I noticed the tension in her shoulders. The next morning while she was in the shower, I did something I had avoided before. I picked up her phone. She had changed the passcode. That small detail felt like confirmation of everything. She wasn't careless. She was protecting something. Later that day, I contacted a lawyer that I didn't tell anyone. Not family. Not friends. I needed information, not comfort. The lawyer explained my options calmly. What documentation would help? How assets would be divided? What steps to take before confrontation? That it felt surreal discussing the end of my marriage in such practical terms. But I listened carefully. I asked questions. I prepared. That evening she came home early again. She cooked dinner. She laughed at something on TV. She leaned against me on the couch like nothing had changed. But everything had. I had seen where she went. I had seen who she chose. And I had made a decision that I wasn't going to beg for loyalty, that I was going to give her one chance to tell the truth. And if she didn't, I would walk away without looking back. I didn't confront her immediately. I waited 3 more days. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to see if she would stop on her own. If guilt would win. If she would choose us without being forced. She didn't. On the 4th night, she said she had another late meeting. That I didn't argue. I didn't question. I simply nodded and said, "Drive safe." When the door closed behind her, I didn't follow this time. I already knew where she would be. Instead, I went upstairs and placed my laptop on the bed. I opened the folder with the footage. I lined up the clips. The first kiss. The apartment parking lot. The timestamps. Then I waited. She came home at 10:12 p.m. calm. Collected. She placed her keys in the bowl by the door and walked in like she always did. "I'm home," she called out softly. "I'm upstairs," I answered. There was a pause. Something in my tone must have sounded different. She walked into the bedroom and stopped when she saw the laptop open on the bed. I was sitting in the chair across from it. "What's going on?" she asked carefully. "Sit down," I said. She didn't move at first. Then she stepped closer and sat at the edge of the bed. I turned the laptop toward her and pressed play. The first clip began. She watched herself on screen driving past our turn. I didn't look at the video. I looked at her. Her face drained of color slowly, frame by frame. When the man opened the passenger door in the footage, her breathing changed. When the kiss happened, she closed her eyes briefly as if bracing for impact. I let the entire clip play. Silence filled the room when it ended. She didn't cry immediately. She didn't speak. She just stared at the blank screen. "How long?" I asked quietly. She swallowed. "It's not what you think." I almost laughed, but nothing came out. "I followed you," I said evenly. "I know about the apartment." That broke her composure. Tears finally spilled over. "It didn't mean anything," she whispered. I felt something harden inside me. "You went back for 6 weeks," I replied. "That's not nothing." She began talking quickly, words tripping over each other. She said she felt lonely. She said we'd grown distant. She said he made her feel noticed. She said it just happened. But I had watched the footage enough times to know it didn't just happen. It was arranged. Planned. Repeated. "You could have talked to me," I said. My voice was steady, but it cost me everything to keep it that way. "You could have told me you were unhappy." "I didn't want to hurt you," she cried. I looked at her in disbelief. "You didn't want to hurt me?" The room felt smaller, heavier. "I was going to end it," she insisted. "I swear." "When?" I asked. "After tonight? After next week?" She had no answer. That silence told me more than any confession could. I walked to the dresser and pulled out an envelope. I placed it on the bed between us. She looked down at it, confused. Then she saw the word printed at the top. "Divorce." Her hand started shaking. "You already did this," she whispered. "I spoke to a lawyer," I said calmly. "I needed to know my options." Her tears turned desperate. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "Please," she begged. "We can fix this. I'll stop. I'll cut him off." I'll do anything. That was the first honest thing she'd said all night. But it was too late that I didn't want to compete for my own wife. I didn't want to wonder every time she was late. I didn't want to check cameras or follow cars or question phone notifications. Trust isn't something you partially rebuild. It either exists or it doesn't. And ours didn't. I loved you, I said quietly. I still do. But I can't stay married to someone I have to monitor. She covered her face and sobbed that I felt pain, yes. But I also felt clarity. The confusion was gone. The doubt was gone. What remained was the simple truth. She made her choice repeatedly, and now I was making mine. That I picked up the laptop and closed it. I'll be staying at a friend's place for a few days, I said. We'll talk about the next steps when things are calmer. As I walked past her toward the door, she called my name in a way that almost made me stop. Almost. But I kept walking, down the stairs, out the front door, into the quiet night air. For weeks, I had watched footage of her driving away from our life to meet someone else. Now, for the first time, I was the one leaving. And this time there was no camera recording it, just me choosing myself.